Hi, I'm Louis Bayard, Chair of the Ken Faulkner Awards Committee, and this is our 2020 virtual awards ceremony. When it became clear to us that we couldn't hold the event in person, we were determined to find some other way to honor these 5 amazing writers. In the video that follows, you'll hear our judges explain their choices, and you'll hear our finalists talk about how their work relates to the current moment. We hope you'll watch, enjoy, share, and we hope that a year from now, you'll join us once again, in person, as we celebrate the breadth and diversity of literary achievement. In the meantime, thank you for supporting the Penn Faulkner Foundation and the written word.
Yiyun Li is the greatest writer of my generation. It's a statement you hear often and one I have myself uttered many times. Here is a book I wish Li did not have to write, however. Where Reasons End is a meditation on grief and an exploration of the many ways you can approach it through literature. And it was created in the aftermath of her own son's suicide. This book is a wildly intimate conversation between a mother and son, outside of time and place, beyond the realm of life and death. We get to know the teenage son, who she calls Nikolai here, through him negotiating his own portrayal. Why did you have children if you knew this might happen, is the question that haunts this whole narrative, when Nikolai simply asks his mother upon learning that she herself had long struggled with suicidal ideation. Li's candor is everywhere in her own story and her son's, the starkly lit anecdotes of everyday domestic trials and tribulations, seemingly small, but in the shadow of death, surreally enormous. Where Reasons End unearths it all and holds a mirror to every culture's inevitable shortcoming, the ability to be at peace with our ends.
Hello, I'm Yiyun Li. I'm very honored that Where Reasons End is shortlisted for this year's Penn Faulkner Award, and I'm honored to be among a group of extraordinary writers. This is a strange time, hardly celebratory, but it's a good time to reflect and to think about the past and the present and the future. Where Reasons End was written during a difficult period of my life, and writing it was a way to search for words when language falls short of saying what one feels. Through working on the book, I learned patience and endurance and resilience, of finding something solid to do each day, of knowing there is something in the future, even though that future is not entirely known. There are similarities between that period and this time of pandemic. During this time of isolation and hardship, I hope my book, written from another time of hardship, could bring a moment of reflection to the readers and a moment of connection.
Peter Rock's The Night Swimmers is an immersive and eternal kind of book. It is the one that I picked up out of the first box of books and to which I compared every single other book that I read, asking myself the question, is it better than The Night Swimmers? The answer to me was always a resounding no. All of us human beings, but particularly us writers, have a storehouse of memories, moments that we recall as having shaped us or directed our lives one way or another. But few of us have the ability to spin a tale that locates coherence within that chaos with such a sure hand. The Night Swimmers is an immersive read. You must be willing to plunge in headfirst without a life jacket in the same way that its swimmers do night after night in deep water on the darkest of nights. His short paragraphs gleam with intelligence, the way that you might imagine seeing a swimmer's arm flash for a moment in dark waters in those deep nights. It is my pleasure to introduce Peter Rock, a finalist for the Penn Faulkner Award in Fiction in 2020.
In this grim and tormented time, I think my hope for my novel is simply that it expresses how strange and amazing it is to be alive, and how sweet it is to live with other people, how fortunate it is to live long enough to be able to recognize that our relationships with others and our pursuit of our own strange obsessions have helped us become the people we are, and to look back at the mysteries of our past with curiosity and good humor, and to be able to recognize how grateful we should feel and to figure out how to express that gratitude to the people who've helped us.
Maurice Carlos Ruffin's exhilarating and masterfully constructed novel, We Cast a Shadow, tells the story of a man whose love for his biracial son pushes him to unthinkable but entirely understandable limits. The quest to undo his child's blackness on the cellular level and medically acquire identifying traits of whiteness. In dazzling prose, we are carried deep into the psyche of a man desperate to outmaneuver the racism he confronts at almost every turn. Our empathy is tested and expanded. We question, along with the narrator, what we would be prepared to do to ensure the safety of those we love in the face of predatory violence. We Cast a Shadow is a spectacular chaos of contradictions that forces our eyes on how the world we have made is destroying all of us. Yet this is also a novel of profound hope, of tender love, and of devastating beauty.
Hello, my name is Maurice Carlos Ruffin, and I am the author of We Cast a Shadow, and I was asked why my book is uniquely suited to speak to the present moment. Well, my book is about a family in the near distant future who is considering the effects of racism in American society. And the father in particular is trying to find a way to protect his son from those effects. Now, when I think of it, I think about whether you're African American or Latinx or one of our Asian brothers and sisters in the present moment, whether you're differently abled or whether you're queer, people are always trying to find a way to be safe and protected. And often the answers to that question, the solution to that problem, is not an easy one. And so my book really explores the questions and issues that are raised by trying to find a safe place in American society. Thank you to Penn Faulkner for making my book one of the finalists, and congrats to all the other finalists. Thank you so much.
Ocean Vuong's On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous is a book that has held my heart in its vice since I first read it as an ARC and on through every single reading until this present moment and beyond. It did so for multiple reasons, but two significant ones. One, its bravely lush prose, which is also incredibly precise, and the singular magnificence of the undertaking itself, which is to explain a life to a mother who does not have the ability to read or understand what is being said to her. The protagonist in this novel, a young boy, loses a great deal in the course of the book, but he also gains a great deal more, and that underscores the necessity of such searches. He finds his first love, he learns to speak the language of desire, he learns to place himself in the social and political context of two countries, and most of all, in looking for the language of translation, he manages to communicate what cannot be communicated to its silent listener. I cannot think of a more important task for any writer to undertake, and this one succeeds in spades. It is my absolute honor to introduce Ocean Vuong as a finalist for the Penn Faulkner Award in Fiction in 2020.
My name is Ocean, and I think what is significant now about On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous? I don't know. I can't say that it's any more significant now than it was when I wrote it. I think it's hard to say as a writer how a work is interpreted in the world. how a book lives in the world. That's up to people and readers. For myself, I think what I do know is that Ocean Vuong gets only one draft at life, and I'm usually not great at it. But when it comes to a book or a novel or a poem, in this case, I got 12 drafts. And anytime we get a chance or multiple chances to bring forth our most considered selves into a project, it's significant. And so, if nothing else, a book is significant because it is charged, it is loaded with the potency of thorough investigations. And that's my hope for Honor.
There is a cliche in literature that all the great stories have been told, which can sometimes feel hard to argue with until you encounter the rare book that is unlike anything else. This is Chloe Aridjis' Sea Monsters, the London-based Mexican-American author's third book, and a study in a sort of everyday surrealism that is altogether hers. Delightfully surreal and yet gritty in its endless amusements, we get the chronicle of the precocious teenage Luisa who runs away with her love interest Tomas to Oaxaca to trace a troop of Ukrainian dwarves. It gets much weirder than this, be warned. Real and surreal swirl through the image of shipwreck, both historic and metaphoric. The streets of Mexico City's Roma neighborhood come just as alive as her otherworldly beachside descriptions. 80s hits, Baudelaire, Greek mythology, Shakespeare, the Mexican Revolution, all of these unlikely influences abound in Luisa's fantastic journey. Aridjis reminds me that theme and symbolism matter every bit as much, if not more, than plot and characters. That setting is not just static time and place, but like Borges' great Aleph, fluid, hyper-animate points that contain every reality, past, present, and future. One hopes the highlighting here will expand her readership and allow marvels most readers did not know was possible to filter in and threaten the boundaries of our often sleeping, rarely startled, enchantment-famished written realms.
My novel is set during the narrator's adolescence, a time when the boundaries between the self and outside world are constantly being tested and negotiated. Most actions are driven by a sense of invulnerability. We're now living through a moment when more than ever before, we're reminded of our fragility as a species. And we're also being reminded of the interconnectedness of all life and the fact we each form part of one vast fragile ecosystem. Every human action casts ripples across the globe. In my novel, French symbolist poetry inspires and informs the way my narrator sees the world. In particular, Baudelaire's theory of correspondences, one of the main tenets of symbolism, which believes in an ongoing dialogue between all living things. My novel also highlights the importance of a strong inner landscape. And now that we all find ourselves in isolation, physically cut off from the outside world, we rely on our inner landscapes more than ever, as we are plunged into a time of profound contemplation. During this extraordinary moment in human history, we're all on our own, and yet in it together.
Hello, I'm Gwydion Sullivan, Penn Faulkner's Executive Director. I hope you agree that the authors you just heard from represent the full depth and diversity of an amazing year in fiction. Thank you so much for joining us and paying tribute to our winner and our finalists. I also want to thank everyone who has stood by us in these difficult times. We're going to end this video with the names of the generous individuals and organizations who contributed to the Penn Faulkner Award celebration this year. We are so grateful for their steadfast support. At a time when we're all having to maintain our distance, literature can still bring us together. By supporting Penn Faulkner, you can ensure that we keep living up to that ideal, that we keep donating free books to DC students, that we keep bringing authors into DC schools to inspire the next generation of readers and writers, that we keep holding provocative literary conversations for the DC community, and that we keep being able to recognize major achievements in literary fiction. You can make a difference right now for Penn Faulkner by visiting bit.ly/PennFaulkner. We'll leave that link right at the end of this video so you can't miss it. Any amount you can contribute will definitely help. Thank you so much for your support.